kind of eerie.
Yeah, I've been high and low, I've been sober, I've been fighting.
Yep.
Searching for my love in all the wrong places.
Huh?
Word up on the streets is I got a bad reputation.
Say what?
Yeah, I may have true blood, but that was true love. Yeah. Everywhere I look, every time I go by,
Love it. Liking that. Huh?
Yeah, you're
Great
not a
choice.
I gotta admit, you're not a bad hype man. You can be that guy that's like walking around the stage, just like
I could do it.
yeah, you could totally do that.
Yeah. One of these days. Welcome back to Geoholics, episode 229.
229, believe it or not.
We've got a great one tonight.
Oh
This
man,
is
we
gonna
are
be an
gonna
amazing
have
conversation.
some fun.
I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but we are going to be focusing on mergers and acquisitions.
Yes, absolutely.
Which a lot of people, I'm sure, are very curious to know more about.
Oh yeah, very
Especially in
popular
today's
topic.
climate.
Yep. I think there's more A's than M's these days, but we'll get in more of that.
Yes, we will. Let me turn this off so it doesn't bleed in there. A couple weekly updates. We've been floating the idea out there recently about the Geoholics store.
Ah, yes. We're calling that it's the merch store.
Yeah, the Geoholics merch store. And I think we're really close to releasing that, right?
We're finalizing some, Kent's got to make sure we
Sean
have
on the spot here.
Have the right colors. It's been my baby and I've been dropping the ball, but you're very particular about like the certain type of cotton and like the fits. I mean, you're a very, very difficult
Everybody
customer.
Wants to look good in their gear.
That is true.
Sure.
That is true.
We got a couple really cool events coming up. We've got Geo in right about 3 weeks, right? 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
The wife and I leave in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm slowly approaching no longer give a crap mode.
And that might be the source of some of your anxiety.
In
the back of your mind, you're thinking about that.
Well, it's been a busy week, a short week, lots of crazy stuff going on at the office. Plus I got, a big trip coming up man, it's all coming to a head here. So
Yep. So stay tuned. Check out our social media for announcements on that.
And we are going to make a point to do more posts on social media and some, like what the kiddies do with the selfies and the little videos, and get our tiki-talkies out there more for the.
That's why we have a social media person.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Well, we have to still record the content. I know.
Yeah,
but we're going to do a better job this year.
And then we have Trimble Dimensions after that. Those are the final 2 events of the year that we'll be
and a busy
making
year.
an appearance at.
Yeah, that's right.
It's been great. Real quick announcement, because we're coming down to the final quarter of the year. Also be on the lookout for more information about being a friend of the program for 2025.
The upcoming...
We need to start to renew those pretty quickly.
We do.
People are starting to talk budgets for next year. So we got to start to float that idea out there. It's a great opportunity for companies to promote their services, their products, whatever.
I think you were just finalizing the ROI for being a friend of the program of the Geoholics.
I was.
Yeah,
You're right. Yeah. Right. Yes, exactly. And then the other thing that I want to mention is it was nice to come into a clean studio.
Oh, did you finally hire a cleaning person?
No, well, I'm the cleaning person.
Okay, good for you.
What was nice, normally after a show, the next day I come in,
it's like a frat house.
It's like a frat house, yes. And it was nice. Last week was just like that last show we did 2 last week. And that last thing we did was just like a quick and dirty promotion of Go Geomatics Expo coming up. But no, it was great. So it was good to walk into a clean studio.
Yeah, I must admit, it did feel nice when we walked in here.
Couple catch-ups. What's new with you? Did you have a good long weekend?
It was not long enough. But it was good and relaxing, just hung out with the family, hung out with some friends, didn't do anything crazy. It was good. What about you?
Great long weekend.
Oh yeah, you were up in Pine, right?
We did. We were up in Pine for the weekend. It was interesting. You and I were talking before the show that like you've been so stressed out the last week and things just aren't, aligning and everything. Karl was talking about having a stressful day and stressful week, and
you're like the complete opposite.
It's just the opposite. Yeah, it's like it's
easy breezy.
I mean, this is how it is. I mean, it's like this, and right now it's like things are aligning, personally and professionally, and it's a good feeling when that happens. Of course, in an instant it can change.
And
can't take anything for granted. Got to remain humble.
Going to Europe in 2 weeks also helps.
Yes, indeed it does. But yes, we were up in Pine for the weekend. Actually, our weekend started on Friday night. Megan and I went to a great show, the Struts and Barnes Courtney.
Ooh.
Played at the Marquee.
Was Willa McKenna up there, guys, with you?
They were up there. They were already up in Pine. Yeah, they met
cool.
us up there.
Nice.
Yeah. And then Roger Klein, the Peacemakers, played up there this weekend and got to see him and ate some of the best pizza in Arizona, as far as I'm concerned, up there at Old County Inn. Free plug, don't get used to it. And of course, the amazing weather. Most importantly, NFL season kicking off.
I believe that we are as we speak.
Very excited about this.
A long time coming.
Indeed. All right, let's move along. NLC Prep Song of the Week. If you are preparing to take your survey exam, FSPS, what have you, be sure to check out nlcprep.com. Anybody I've talked to that has used NLC Prep to prep for their exams has passed on the first try.
Yeah. Yep. Very good.
What do you got, buddy?
All right. Newer artist, second time on the show. That was a song called Falling in Reverse by Jelly Roll.
Well, hold on a second.
What's that?
Falling in Reverse is the band.
Oh, it's
Jelly
Falling in
Roll
Reverse with Jelly Roll?
To be on the show, on that
Oh, that's
song.
the artist?
Yes. Falling in Reverse is the artist.
Oh, thanks for clarifying.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Name of the song. You can start.
The name of the song is All My Life. Oh, I got to check our copywriter here. Falling in Reverse is an American rock band formed in 2008 by lead vocalist Ronnie Radke. Karl was talking about that earlier. After his departure from Escape the Fate, the band is known for blending various music styles, including post-hardcore, metalcore, pop punk, and electric elements. Over the years, Falling in Reverse has evolved musically, experimenting with rap, metal, and electronic influences, thus Jelly Roll. The band's lyrics often focus on themes of personal struggles, self-reflection, and mental health.
Yeah, great band. Yeah. Love that song. Glad to have him on the playlist. And I should mention the playlist, Spotify.
Always.
The Geoholics playlist now is up to 14 hours of music. Every song from every episode in chronological order is on that playlist.
Gotta be one of the, I mean, I don't think we can promote this playlist enough.
It's incredible.
If you get nothing from it, it's just, it is a naturally eclectic mix of music.
Yeah. And 14 hours. If you're flying to Australia, it's perfect.
Right.
All right. We are in the Diamondback Land Surveying studio this evening.
As we are.
About Diamondback Land Surveying. They provide complete surveying, mapping, and construction staking solutions for residential, commercial, and public works projects. DBLS is a firm made up of highly skilled professional land surveyors with over 200 years of experience in the public land survey system and construction surveying. Their survey teams take great pride in being professionals in all aspects of their work and emphasize on-time service that maintains an excellent reputation in the construction and development communities by consistently providing top-notch services to our clients. Dude, that was like the best read
You
ever.
did really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
To find out more, go to diamondbacklandsurveying.com.
Yeah, we don't talk about TK enough about how great a guy and great DBLS is.
When you talk to TK, make sure you mention him that the Geoholics sent you.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Next up, the Geomax Weekly Service Pro Tip. To find out more about Geomax, go to geomax-positioning.com. Love this quote.
I know it goes right along with this year's lot of the theme of this year.
Yep.
All right, so here we go. If we are not failing, we're not trying big enough things. That was Jesse Cole, owner of the Savannah Bananas.
Yep. Love that quote. Any further commentary on that, Sean?
You know, my
you
wife.
Feel like you're failing enough? Or could you fail more?
I can always fail more, and part of I got little self-reflection here. Part of the anxiety and issues from this week was still letting that fear and shame of failure come in when it really shouldn't be there, and I got to push it back out.
Yeah. Can only worry about what you can control.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And most things you can't.
And even if it doesn't work out, that means I at least tried something, and we're gonna, and all the things, all those sayings come into play. This stepping stone or this failure is tomorrow's stepping stone, and all those other things. But that's very timely.
Yeah, and nobody's gonna die.
Right? Yeah. It's gonna be all right.
All right. Next up, the GeoSearch Career Corner this week. They have a client that's looking for a sales executive in Denver, Colorado.
Really?
Not a bad place to live, actually. Their client is searching for candidates with a minimum of 3 years of sales experience, preferably in the land survey, construction, or heavy equipment industry.
This position requires a working knowledge of the local construction market with a proven track record demonstrating the ability to develop relationships with customers and promote sales, rentals, and service. In this position, you will be responsible for prospecting and identifying opportunities and closing deals with small, medium, and large contractors.
You will be selling TopCon, and I haven't heard of this brand, to be honest with you. Is it Futura? not sure. I butchered it. I apologize. Robotic total stations, construction lasers, GPS, and 2D, 3D machine control equipment and supplies, among many other products. This position will require you to be a driven, self-motivated, and goal-oriented individual.
Nicely done. To find out more, simply go to geosearch.com. And as always, happy mapping.
Love those guys. Geosearch. They're the best.
I always forget about them sometimes, you know?
Indeed. Okay, we're here.
We got it.
Time to bring in the experts on the subject matter. So
yeah, let's get this thing going.
We've got Byrom Hess with us, Karl Oberg, and Duffy Haggerty. And what we're going to do real quick is let them do brief self-introductions. Karl, I'm going to let you go first. Let's just go with name, kind of who you're with, what you do. And then our icebreaker is going to be, what would your walkout song be?
That's easy. So I'm going to start with the walkout song.
Fair enough.
Love it.
So since we're on the falling in reverse kick right now, I would have to say Watch the World Burn would be my song.
Ah, okay. I do know this band. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know,
yeah.
Ronnie Radke actually raps just as fast as Eminem does in Monster. So it's pretty awesome.
Really? All right.
Super talented.
So my name is Karl Oberg. I'm actually a regional director for Ardurra Group. Ardurra Group is about a 7-year-old firm, and we're, as of today, about 1,750 people.
Wow.
I actually, and about 85 plus offices. I am the regional director for, it's in the Southwest. We call ourselves a mountain region, but we're not really that mountainous. So Arizona, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, and New Mexico. So.
Nice.
I think that's mountainous. I give you mountainous there. Yeah.
Yeah. Good mix. Byrom, why don't you go next?
I'll start with my walk-up song. That would be Blind by Korn.
Nice.
Yeah, good one.
That song always gets me going.
Yep, that's awesome.
I currently work for Bowman. I used to work for Hess Roundtree. We were acquired by Bowman December of 2023.
Paint's still dry.
A little too dry. I'm currently overall the integration, everything from accounting, IT, HR, all that for our Hess Roundtree business unit. And then I also manage all of our solar clients, which is all survey work.
Nice. All right, Duffy, last but not least.
So Duffy Haggerty with David Evans and Associates, and I am the business unit leader for survey and geomatics. And I guess my experience that I'm bringing to the table, just to clarify a little bit, I've not been involved directly in a lot of our acquisitions, but I haven't been involved in the integration part, ancillary. So I wanted to start with that clarification up front. And my walkout song would be Johnny Cash, Burning Ring of Fire.
Oh,
I knew it was going to be Johnny Cash.
Love it. Those are all three really good answers.
Yeah, I feel like we should just add them to the playlist because.
Yeah, I think we should.
All right, let's jump into this here a little bit. Well, of course, those icebreakers were sponsored by Trimble Geospatial.
Oh, yeah, we got to mention them as many times as we can before Dimensions in November.
Be sure to visit geospatial.trimble.com for all your survey needs.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, let's go. And of course, as I mentioned, our topic of conversation this evening is mergers and acquisitions, because a number of the folks on the show have been involved with either a merger or an acquisition.
Yes.
At some point.
Actually,
sure.
all of us have.
All of us have. Yes. And there's a ton of this happening right now. You know, it's like every day I get on LinkedIn and I see, Sam purchase a new company, or so-and-so person, Collier's purchases.
Yeah.
Ardurra
is now.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. So there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot that needs to be considered. And we need to take full advantage of this opportunity to talk to these folks that have been through these things. So let's just kind of get real general right out of the gate. When it comes to like a strategy that needs to be considered when going into a merger and acquisition. So Karl, I'm going to let you go first, just because you're sitting right in front of me, and I live my life vicariously through you on Facebook. Talk about like a general strategy that needs to be thought about, going into one of these situations.
Well, one of the things that I've seen, and I've been a part of multiple mergers and acquisitions, is when you start to think about wanting to sell, first, you want to look at all different aspects: internal sell, external sell. If you're doing an external sell, how do you want to go about it? But no matter what you do, any sell you do, even internally, you need to make sure your net value, your EBITDA is a certain point. Your liabilities are way lower than your assets, because we've seen that. we've seen where assets, like if something happened to the company, their liabilities are higher than their assets, and that usually doesn't work. So for anybody wanting to sell their firm, then those are things I would say, start looking at that.
So you're saying you should have an actual like
plan,
some sort of idea on how much you make a year and what your assets are and what your liabilities might be. And
oh yeah, and what your backlog is.
Ooh,
your longevity. Have you had claims? Your employee longevity. So I mean, those are things that like we look at with firms.
Yep. So. Yep. And one thing we should probably mention is prior to Ardurra, Rittak Powell was your firm, and you were majority owner of Rittak Powell.
Yes.
At the time when you were acquired.
Yeah. So I acquired Rittak Powell in 2004.
Okay.
And I was employee number 5, and I was actually employee number 7, but 2 of the employees, Rittak and Powell, were leaving.
Got it.
So it was easy for me because it wasn't so expensive.
Sure.
But there's a lot too when you acquire or you open up your own firm.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it than people realize. So
yeah, we're going to get into that more. So Byrom, in your situation, how did your firm know it was time to go through an acquisition?
Probably the biggest thing was the age of the owner. He was getting closer to that retirement age, so he kind of knew I need to start figuring my exit plan out. One of the biggest things I'd put is start earlier.
It's all right. No problem. It's only water.
Oops, a daisy.
If it was vodka, it'd be different, but it's only water.
I'd be licking it off the table.
But you want to start earlier than you would expect, because it can take multiple years.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things that a lot of times people probably start too late.
Yep.
The firm that I work at, my dad previously owned, and he was always planning to sell it internally.
Sure.
But he ended up getting cancer and had to sell it. Didn't have that time, but then you're selling under distress.
Sure.
The former owner who just sold to Bowman, he thought he was going to go internally, but then after kind of evaluating it, making sure everyone's on board, because there are a lot of things that go into it, and there's different risk depending on if you're doing it internally or externally and how the deal's set up.
Gotcha.
But it does take a good amount of time to go through. We talked to, I think, 3 different firms.
Oh, wow.
Before we actually were acquired. And 2 of them, we actually went pretty far down the path, like where we talked for over 6 months. So,
interesting.
So it can take a while to kind of work through everything.
Yeah.
Kind of come to the place.
Yeah. So is there like a I don't know, a civil consulting marketplace where you put your firm up there for sale type thing? Like how do these other firms know that that you guys were in that position?
For us, I don't know, to be honest. I think some people, just because, like you said, there's a lot of merger and acquisitions going on. So I think you get a lot of cold calls. So we got a lot of just cold calls.
Gotcha.
One of the first ones was our former owner actually had a relative that was at a firm that was looking to acquire.
Okay.
The second one, I think, was just a cold call, like a merger and acquisition firm basically reached out and said, "Hey, are you thinking about retiring?" And then that deal fell. Gosh, dang it, man.
That was awesome. I love
it. That fell through, and the merger and acquisition guy that was working with that firm actually hooked us up with Bowman, because we'd already kind of been through a bunch of the due diligence. We're kind of primed and ready to kind of.
Yeah. And you said something early on about, we'll talk about surveyors specifically, but typically horrible business people, and most of the time do not have an exit strategy. So they're put in a position of, I don't know, weakness a lot of times, I suppose, as a result of that.
Well, I don't think it's just surveyors.
Yeah, there's
it's engineers as well. I mean, one of the things that we all talk about in surveying and engineering and construction management inspections, not a lot of us went to school to study business.
Yep.
Or even English, for crying out loud.
Or economics or anything.
Like, I didn't have an economics class.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
When along your career did you learn what EBITDA was?
About a year ago.
Yeah, right.
No,
awesome.
no, I think everything with me was trial by error.
Yeah.
So it was like, I just had to jump into it and learn it. But.
Yeah. Seems to work out okay though.
So I love the due diligence aspect, and we can ask Duffy this to start. But when you get into looking at a firm and say you're the whale swallowing the minnow, so to speak, what are the things, Karl said a couple things, but what are some of the due diligence things that you really focus on first when you look to see if a firm is attractive or somebody you want to bring on the team?
So in most of my experience with integrations, like 7 or 8 years old, so it's a little bit stale, and it's coming from the side of actually post integration and actually integrating it with the team. And one of the things I can say from that perspective is that as the team integrates as part of the group, the culture is so important, right? And how well does the group that's there integrate with what your group's doing? If you have two separate entities, they're working independent of one another, that merge doesn't work as well, right? And so it's so critical, from my perspective in the due diligence stage, that you're vetting out that what that cultural differences look like and what that merge could look like.
And is that like, personnel capabilities and lines of service, or is it just general office people disposition and how, what's more important? Is it general attitude or purely, lines of business?
Well, we all know that attitude's important. So that's, it's important with any type of integration that if you've got a positive attitude, it makes it easier. But I think with more than anything, it's the processes. So, and how they go about doing things. And if you're set in your ways and you've been doing it for years and you bring in a new process and it's completely different, that's where your confliction can start,
Yeah. So you mean you can't just go on that company's website, look at their vision statement and say, oh yeah, that
sounds like a good vision to me. Let's bring them in.
Kind of matches ours. This ought to be perfect.
Hey, that's what they did in the 2000s. Yeah, right. In 2024.
How about you guys? You guys want to talk about due diligence a little bit?
Well, first of all, I think the name Duffy Haggerty is an awesome sports name.
Right?
Yeah. I keep looking at his name. I'm all, man.
I know.
A quarterback, number one, Duffy Haggerty.
number one in your hearts.
I think it's more like a cowboy bull rider or something, right?
But I have to totally agree with what Duffy said. I mean, culture is a big monster part of it.
Yeah.
One of the things that I appreciate about Ardurra and why I went to them was because the CEO owned his own small company, and over time it built up. Well, his idea was, if we're going to acquire, let's acquire small to medium-sized firms so we can maintain a culture, quick and nimble. We want to have that family style. We want to, keep these people happy. Let's get rid of the bureaucracy. I was about to curse. I remember you told me not to curse.
No, it's okay.
Oh, fucking cool.
Yeah. So we're after 6 p.m. You're good to go.
But no, so culture is a huge part of it, because a lot of us started our firms because we didn't want to work for the big firms. We didn't want to be number 85086 or whatever. And, we wanted our clients to realize if there's a problem, you can call me. You don't have to call somebody that may not answer that goes to somebody and stuff. So culture is huge. And I know Bowman has a great culture, by the way. So we've seen it. It's great. So, thank you, quarterback Duffy, for throwing me that lob. It's awesome.
Take it home.
Yeah, there you go. So Byrom, you mentioned like you were talking to, or your company was talking to other firms as well. So obviously you went with Bowman because you felt like they were the best fit, right? So
that was part of it. It was, there's money. There's a lot of things involved.
Of course.
What's the best fit? But going back to the due diligence, a lot of what Karl said earlier on when you were asking about what do you start doing? Because a lot of information is going to be required, and most people, especially if you're a smaller company, and as we just talked about, a lot of engineers, surveyors, they're not trained to be business people. You kind of learn as you're going. So you might not have a lot of the information like, oh, what are our NSRs? Are these numbers put together? Or do I have a list of my top 20 clients over the last 5 years? And So there's a lot of that you basically are going to have to produce a lot of the financial information and or put all that together basically, which does take a lot of time.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So maybe a better way to approach this is if you were a smaller firm and you're looking to, you're looking for an exit strategy, what do you guys think would be like the top 5 things that you want to make sure you put together before you kind of go to market or put yourself out there? I mean, you need to understand your 12-month EBITDA. You need to know what your assets and liabilities are. What are some of the other big ones that you see firms coming short on?
Bookkeeping. Bookkeeping is big.
In general, yeah.
That's the biggest one we've seen some of our acquisitions fail at was, just maintaining a good book. So there was one firm that we looked at buying, and we got into they had Deltec Vision, and it was very clear that they'd never had training with it.
That's good.
The problem we had was if we were to buy that firm or to acquire it, the amount of effort we would have gone into in trying to understand how to clean up contracts or finalize contracts was going to be a nightmare. So I always recommend when someone's about to sell or thinking about selling, get your books in order, hire somebody that knows what they're doing because it's worth it. And then also make sure your computers, your vehicles, your equipment are updated, because there's other times where I've looked at acquiring firms where they had survey equipment that was outdated.
Sure.
And we all know, in order to get the S1s and all that kind of stuff, that it's not cheap. So that was going to be investment we would have made. So
yeah. And I would think, companies that have the most up-to-date equipment, stuff like that. I mean, that just says something right out of the gate about how they do business,
And the other one is always make sure that you've taken care of your clients. And when I say that, we don't like to look at firms that have claims or had a lot of claims.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. You make sure your clients are happy, because if you have a bad reputation, nobody wants to buy you. I had somebody in my office go, you know what? We keep buying these firms that are busy. Why are we not buying firms that are not busy so we can use their people and be busy? I'm like,
there's a reason.
So you're telling us to buy a shitty firm,
yeah, right?
So that you don't have to work hard, and then we're just going to lose money there, and then we're going to lose money by those employees probably leaving because they don't want to be busy.
Why don't you just wait for them to leave on their own, not by the firm?
Yeah. Well,
but you mentioned you mentioned that about equipment, and that kind of is a good segue on valuation. And this is one of the things that I've seen. I'm sure everyone here has had that experience of the firm, the guy that doesn't have an exit strategy, has been doing this for 30 years, and he thinks that his company is worth X,
$1 billion.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then you look at it is he doesn't even have any books, so he can't prove it. All his equipment's outdated, and it's just something that someone told him 15 years ago is what he should do. What do you got? Maybe Byron, you can, especially because you're a CFO according to your website.
What?
But how do you approach valuation? What's something realistic that guys can get some value out of?
It's going to be your financials. It's going to be your book of clients, contracts you have, stuff like that. Your backlog.
So you're saying you actually have to have written contracts in place,
or if you like us, we had on-call contracts. Those are going to bring a lot of value because we do a lot of schoolwork. So if we have like a 5-year contract or something like that, that's going to be up. But it's basically most of it's financials. A lot of your equipment, they're not going to put any value on. Like there's value there, but it's not. You're not really taking that into consideration. It's basically you're going to go through and look and see like what's your NSR for the last 3 years type stuff, and then that's what's going to drive your value.
You're gonna have to inform our listeners what NSR is.
It's net service revenue. I'm on the spot.
That's enough.
It's basically your revenue divided by that's your revenue factor. Now I'm getting confused in my head. But
what Karl said is you need to hire somebody that knows what that is so they can put it on paper.
NSR is take out your direct project expenses. So take your consultants out and take so what's actually your revenue? And then the other things where I was getting confused is this revenue factor. It's taking that NSR number divided by your labor, which basically shows how kind of profitable you actually are.
Got it.
So those are what they're going to be looking at is like, what's your actual revenue? And then how profitable is that by comparing that to your labor?
Yeah. And I know some like these old school surveyors, they think their records are so valuable, right?
Yeah.
Because they've got 20 years of records in a particular county,
it's like
or
80 years of
whatever it is. Yeah. So, that's always a sticking point. And then even some contracts, because a lot of these contracts, if you get acquired, there's an out clause in there that how much value is really in some of those contracts, Well, so it's a tricky situation to do an evaluation for sure.
When that's some of the stuff during due diligence towards the end.
Yeah.
You have to identify all the contracts that you do have to get transferred over, because you have to start understanding all that, which usually you're not paying attention when you sign some staking contract for your.
Yeah.
I mean, all the language in that 30-page document that you flip to the bottom and
signed.
Sounds good.
How about you, Duffy? You got anything to add to that portion of the conversation? Valuation?
Yeah, I could double down on the equipment. So if you're like an integrated survey firm, like we are, for example, and you bring somebody on that's running a different set of equipment, there's not much value there at all. I mean, and we all know the resale on older equipment is not much. And so, I see a lot of people that I talk to and think that, oh, we got all this equipment and we've got all this, that side of it, and there's not much there. I think that's a big piece. The other thing that I was thinking is that I think you'd mentioned it before, is the liabilities come with it, right? Like you could have years of public records, right? But when you're getting acquired, all those liabilities come with you too, Yeah. And so there's upsides and downsides with all that, So what's the value on that? I don't know.
Well, and adding on to that, that's something that owners, when they're looking to sell, need to think about, is the cost of I'm drawing a blank again.
Trail
policy, basically, and those aren't cheap.
No.
So usually they're going to acquire a 3-year trail.
So
what is that?
Okay, so what it is I was about to explain this a little bit. So there's two types of purchases. There's an asset purchase and there's a stock purchase. So when you're selling, you want to do a stock sell, not an asset sell. When you sell the assets, that means all the liabilities are still, as far as safety or, project wise, those liabilities stay on the original owner, and you have to have tail coverage. I said trail.
It's
tail coverage. And that's not cheap. But sometimes you can just do like a 3-year or 5-year or something. So when you're buying a firm, you want to do an asset purchase. So
interesting. Another good segue to private equity. That's something that's been talked about. I mean, I've heard the term private equity more in the last 5 years than I ever have in my life. Right. And I'm not going to say I fully understand how this works, but I'm hopeful that one of you guys can shed some light on that.
So I did another podcast, and it was strictly about internal and external sales. And one of them was with the external. You have really 3 options. You can go with, you sell to another firm, venture capitalist. I don't, if you understand that, that's like somebody who will just say, hey, I'll give you a bunch of money, and we promise you'll get bigger. We'll give you all.
We're going to let you handle everything. We're not going to get in your way. And then 12 months later,
they take over. And then there's private equity. And there's public, I guess. So there's like 4, but private equity is a bunch of investors. And the way that I talk about private equity investors is that, I got to be careful how I say this. Okay. So let's just say the stock market people are like kindergartners, and the private equity folks are seniors in high school. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Their education for economics is superior.
Yeah.
And so when a private equity firm comes in and looks at purchasing any of you, you look at it. You let them look at it because they know what they're doing. And most of the time, the reason why they know what they're doing is because they only invite certain people to invest. They're not the yous and me's guys. These are the Waltons and the Trammell Crows and the
Black Rocks.
And yes, and they do a recapitalization every 4 or 5 years, so that whoever's investing gets their money back, and then they can do it again. So these private equity folks, they don't buy to lose; they buy to win. And that's one of the things I would explain. So all these private equity folks are like, hey, these firms are making 25, 30% profit. That's better than the market. So let's do this. And as you buy, you get more EBITDA and you get more X on EBITDA. So if you're a smaller firm, it's your net value. We'll just call it net book value is your EBITDA. Is 3 times that is what you could sell for. But as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, it becomes 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. You know what I'm saying? So that's why private equities have gotten really big into the in this industry.
And I've also seen some stats too of that they're, and it's been recent in the last 5 to 10 years, really in the last 5 years, it's been a big push into the AEC market, and mainly because they see what the potential investment is, federal government and where all the money is, and that it's strictly supply and demand. There is a huge supply there's a huge demand for AEC, and there's a whole bunch of trillions of dollars there, and they look at all the AEC companies and all the professionals out there, and there is this much supply out there. And like, well, clearly there's a lot of runway with all these firms. Let's go, like you're saying, let's go put our money there because our rate of return is going to be better than in any other market right now. And for the foreseeable future, 27, 28, that's still where the projections go.
I think it's going to be that way for a long time.
Wow.
I mean, it's the salaries that surveyors and engineers make have never been that fantastic. We're pretty much held by what the government salary would be. And now because the demand is so high and the supply is so low, we're actually starting to see some good salaries. I mean, I'm seeing land surveyors that are making 6 figures easy in the first 5 years of having their PLS.
We have talked about this and it ties right back into a common theme of the supply is so low and the demand is going to still be high. I mean, right now, an RLS commands just as high a salary as a PE.
Yes,
and that's been recent in the last few years where that's shifted. And we keep talking about it, and it's great. And everyone I tell that to is like, oh, I didn't know that. And I tell my nephew, hey, kid,
nobody's teaching it.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody's teaching survey right now.
That is very, very correct.
I'm going to add on to that. I think that's part of the reason you are getting so much M&A right now. But I was encouraging our firm, since we were a small company, I think it's going to be hard for small companies long term to have RLSs on.
Yeah.
Because
really,
there's just not a supply. So if you're a small company, you don't have the same resources to hold that person on. So at some point, like we were at risk if we would lose our RLS. It's not like I could replace them tomorrow. It could take you months.
Yeah.
We might be out of business and sued for everything by that time because
because Duffy and Karl are hiring them all.
So it's a huge risk.
Damn it,
right?
Duffy.
So I think that's pushing towards M&A because right now it's hard if you're a small company and you're depending on an RLS because they can literally walk out the door and get a job anywhere, and then you're stuck.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter even if you're small, large. I mean, it's just people are following the money. And I always try to, there's a dichotomy there because I want people to be loyal, but I understand they need, it's nice to make some money. The other thing I learned when owning my company was I could be as loyal to my employees as like beyond belief, but my employees weren't as loyal back, even though they would say they were. So I would throw money at them to keep them and stuff, thinking, oh, they're loyal. But then some other firm, ABC, would say, hey, I'll give you an extra 20% with a signing bonus of 25 grand. All of a sudden the loyalty to me was gone,
Sure.
But it's okay because they want to make money. So
yeah, all good points. Duffy, you got something to add there?
Well, obviously DA is employee owned, so I don't have any direct experience with private equity, but I do have the experience of competing with private equity. And, it's hard to compete when you're especially going after somebody, you're trying to recruit somebody, and you're trying to do it on the basis of, well, this is what my clients will give me. And it seems like when they're offered something from somebody else that's getting backed by another source, it's like, the sky's the limit, and we can't compete for that because we're looking at different factors,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, good point.
Is there any concern on longevity there? I mean, I know some, like a nice, fun employee-owned company like DEA. You think, okay, this is where I'm going to end my career, and like you were saying, it was, and maybe not more in the private equity, but maybe the venture guys. But is there a risk of, okay, they're going to let us go for a few years, and then they're going to come in and shake it up, and then I need to? I mean, do you guys see that risk with bigger companies coming in and making purchases?
Yeah, you see that, but you see that no matter what. So like I turned my company from, I said, like 5 people to about 85. And we went through all kinds of different changes. I mean, there's growing pains no matter what.
Sure.
If you're 1,500, if you're 12, when you grow, it's hard, because I remember going from QuickBooks to Deltec Vision. That was like splitting the Red Sea. It was like impossible, right? But we had to do it. Ritok Powell did. I don't want anybody to ever be fearful of that, but there is a point when you're at to me, because I've worked at H&TB, I worked at Parsons, I even worked at Kemley Horn. So I worked for some of the big firms, and there are some pluses and minuses from the big to the small. First of all, I hated being a number. I'm a loudmouth, so I like to do my own thing. And now, owning RPA, and I'm sure Byrom feels this too, is like you're Byrom, that you're the boss, and all of a sudden you have a boss. That's pretty difficult. I'm used to going, hey, can you come into my office? Let's have a conversation. And now somebody goes, hey, I need you to come into my office. I'm like, fuck you, I'm out. So it is a little different culture, but there's always change.
Sure.
No matter what. So
yeah. Well, when going into it, there's going to be change, right? And we kind of danced around a little bit. You can talk about fear, talk about excitement, talk about the emotions in general that go along with, being a part of a transaction like this. Like in your case, Karl, you had 85 employees that you had to think about. And I'm sure Byrom in your case as well.
One of the things, it's going to be a roller coaster. I'm sure you might have had this, where there's going to be a lot of ups and downs during like the due diligence and the negotiations. At times you're like, hey, it's going well. Then at times you're like, is this going to fall through? So it is a very up and down kind of journey.
Sure.
Both during due diligence and then after, during integration is also going to be you should expect it to be rocky.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Oh, I agree. I mean, there was many times I was like calling the CEO of Ardurra saying, you know what, I'm done. I'm out. You asked me for one more thing. I'm done. One more. Okay, I'll get
you that. All right, I get that. It's okay. It's okay.
But it is. It's hard. If you ever do decide to go into an acquisition or a merger, just be prepared. Like what Byrom's saying, the month prior to closing is hard. Like one of the hardest months ever. And the 6 months after closing is hard.
Yeah.
But not as hard as that first month prior to closing.
Oh, okay.
Because you're getting all your information and you're digging, and all of a sudden you're finding things you're like, oh, damn.
Is this a deal breaker or not?
Like, did I really forget to pay those guys?
Like, I thought we settled that claim. Like, I thought that was done. Like,
you start looking at your assets and you're like, oh, where's that truck? Did we sell that truck? I have no idea. Like you really find out weird things. Like you find things are missing or whatever.
Sure.
But it is tough. It is tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then you mentioned like the next 6 months. Talk a little bit about that. And I know that's where Duffy really comes in, of that integration. And, we talk about cultural, and we say that word a lot, but I'm interested in what you guys think about what's your experience been in those first 6 months? What's been really, really good things, and what's been really, really rough? Duffy, I'll let you go. So I know you're itching.
Okay, I'll kick this one off. So I think I can say that on 2 different cases, there's, kind of the small company, when they come over, I have experienced that there's a tendency to want to do kind of smaller projects, making it really difficult to integrate. Being a bigger company, we all know that the short, choppy projects are hard to integrate with the flow, and, kind of dropping some of those old habits are, they're difficult to do. I can say that there's also like little ceremonial things that come with, you know, some of the companies where they like ring a bell when they win a project and stuff, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you're never going to see that happen in all of the offices, right? It's not going to be something that just like picks up and takes off, right? And it's like some of those old habits are they're hard to drop, and you kind of walk into the offices even after, you know, 5 or 6 years, and you're still seeing remnants of the old culture of what it was. And it's like, it's only unique to there, right? You know?
So is that a problem? Do you don't want to be the guy that squashes their enthusiasm and rips their bell off the door, but you also want them to integrate with the team, right?
Exactly. So I think that's the challenging part. It's like, at what pace are you taking away and forcing the change, and what things do you just let go? So you got to kind of pick and choose, you know. But there's a lot of things that, you know, that are hung on to, right, in that for that transition time.
What's been your experience, Byrom? You're in, like I said, you're in month 9 or something like that. So you're fresh.
I am, and we literally just went into we were in Deltec Ardurra, and we just went into their Envision. Yeah. And last week was our first week in Vision, and we're doing our billing right now. So it's been a rough week.
I'm glad that you've been able to join us, because am I getting a paycheck this week?
I better not say certain things. Certain hiccups do come along the way.
Sure.
But across the board, there, as he said, you're trying to get, like, you have the employees that are anxious. For us, we went from a smaller firm to now a public company that's a lot larger, which has a lot of just different dynamics in itself, and trying to get people to adjust and understand, like having to work to quarterly numbers.
Sure.
Where it's not like, hey, I'm not worried if I have a slow month. And now it's like, no, your quarters actually matter too. So but just across the board, there's just a lot of items that you're trying to figure out how to kind of merge the two together. And then for us, like, there is a lot of times where you don't have direction, or it's who do I reach out to try to figure this out. So a lot of people will still come to me, and I'm like, I'm in the same boat you're in right now, trying to figure this out.
Yeah, puts you in a tough spot for sure.
So
what about on that same topic, you know, what you've got leadership from both companies involved, you know, how do you determine what the org chart is going to look like, you know, when an acquisition like that takes place?
No, we're looking at you, Karl, because
mine was tough, I will say.
Lots of dotted lines and
well, you know, first of all, I know exactly what Byrom's going through. You know, at some point you have to figure out where your 1 year anniversary and whatever you had your, you know, whip or contracts and stuff, you would get it at that 1 year, whatever was left over, right? So they call it a peg, by the way. And when they say peg, I'm like, oh, what kind of peg are you talking about? I feel like I'm getting the wrong kind of peg.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, going through that. The other thing is, before I answer your question, because I wanted to add a little bit more, my biggest challenge was the back office. Let's just be honest. Engineering, surveying, inspection, we all do the same thing. We're all the same. We're all the same. We can all do it. We all love it. But when somebody from a financial side tells me how to do something, or an HR side, or a marketing side, I'm like, that's funny. It doesn't say Ardurra Marketing Group, and it doesn't say Ardurra Financials. So our biggest challenges as engineers and surveyors and inspectors is that you're being told how to run a business by people, and you're like, oh, well, wait a second. No, you all support me. You support me, period. Yeah. So those have been some of my challenges, and I don't know if you're going through that. And it's not necessarily it is a bad thing. I'm not going to fucking blow smoke up anybody's ass. It is a bad thing. And that's something that people are working on. In our company, we're working on that too. We're like, okay, listen, people.
What did you? I know you smiled about that, Duffy. What do you have to comment there?
Oh, I just can relate to the angst, like, seeing people try to integrate with like your accounting system, for example, and dealing with the billings and dealing with, now I got this accountant I got to answer to, and the accountant's telling me it's done this way. And it's like, well, I haven't done it that way for years,
And my client likes it this way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and then that goes to the same question of, there. I think that's Duffy's.
Somebody.
I got it. Hang on a second.
You asked me about the org chart too.
Yeah.
And I veered off. I squirreled. The org chart was a huge challenge. And the reason why the org chart was a challenge was because our folks were being told by somebody in Florida how to set up an organization. And when I say our folks, it was another individual that is no longer with our company. And when they set up that org chart, I said, this isn't going to work. Because you understand the insides of and the information and insides of different individuals. This person cannot work with that person, and now you've put that person under that person. So org chart is very challenging.
But you can only have 5 direct reports, so if that guy's got 6, he's got to go over there. That's just how it is, right?
But I think one of the things we try to do at Ardurra is we try not to really have an org chart. And that's failing. and the reason I say that, I might lose my job. I'll work with you guys.
Yeah, cool.
No, but it's the younger people. They want to know what the ladder is.
Yes, sure. Absolutely.
So, and what's cool is our CEO and CFO. They're all like, okay, maybe we do need to have an org chart. But when you're acquiring, we've acquired like 30 firms now.
Wow.
So when you try to acquire and you're constantly doing an org chart.
Yeah, right.
All the time. So it's challenging.
And I've made that mistake. Me personally, it's we don't need it. We don't need titles. We don't need any of this stuff. Just, you work for you. We all support each other. And then you realize that was just me thinking this is what people, especially the kids, want. And that's not at all what they want. They want structure. They want to see where I can go from here to here. They want to know who their boss is and who his boss is. And it's all got to be all dialed in. And it is harder than I ever thought to put that together.
On our end, it was interesting. We had, and I'm sure every company does it different, acquires. The way Bowman does it right now is they kind of leave you on an island where it's like, okay, you still have your unit as we're integrating, most of the structure still there, which creates some issues as you get kind of far down the process, because they actually split engineering and surveying are two different businesses.
But a novel idea.
When we're still trying to be together, but then we know they're splitting, then you have some people that are like, well, you're my boss right now, but you're really not, which that can create some issues. Plus, it was just funny. I remember in their thing, it would say like, because they have in their system, you could see like what the org chart is. But I would look over here and it would say, it says I'm the branch manager over here, but over here I'm under corporate accountant over here. So I'm like, I don't even know. Over here it calls me this, over there it calls. I was like, whatever.
Yeah. Technically I answer to the junior controller, but I also oversee the store.
Yeah, I actually run this whole business unit too, but I also need to. My boss is technically someone I never met in person.
Yeah,
I'm just looking forward to being in the basement looking for my red stapler.
Right. Well, I got to, and that kind of brings up a question that I really want to ask, and I want to get you guys honest feedback. You all been through this. Have you ever caught yourself being a straight up hypocrite where you said, I am not going to do this. We're going to do X. And then 6 months later, you're doing Y. Is it really possible to keep? I mean, I hate to say it, but have you been in that position?
Daily.
What about you, Duffy? I know you talk a lot and make a lot of commitments.
Well, and I can relate for just hiring people on, you deal with it, right? You try to paint this picture, right, of what it looks like and how it's going to be. And, you may get a pretty high percentage on it, but, there's, nothing's perfect, right? And a lot of it's still in the eye of the beholder, right? And who's looking through their lens, right?
Can you personally attest to that?
I am going to say no comment.
Comment on that one.
Oh, that's great.
That's awesome. So funny. So my experience as far as an acquisition goes, I was working for a larger firm in Chicago. We were acquiring a 100-person firm out here in Phoenix. Got approached in Chicago. Hey, do you want to move out to Phoenix, be part of the acquisition, inject the corporate culture, all that fun stuff? And I'm like, oh my God, this sounds amazing. I've always wanted to live in Arizona. My kids are young. This is perfect. Get out here. This other firm, the employees, they did not want to be acquired at all. And it was like everything was pushback. And I'm like, this is a freaking nightmare. What have I gotten myself into? But I think that's probably something that's very common when these things happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, luckily I went in with expectations that it was going to be rough, which helped, but I'm constantly talking to our employees, trying to make their expectations reasonable to what you're going, that, hey, integration is going to be held no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like we just have to get through these. There's stuff's going to happen.
Sure. And that's a good, segue too, of like, how do you communicate to your employees what to expect? You know, what's the best message that you can give to them? And what are maybe some warning things? You know, what do you tell your staff?
That actually starts, and it can differ between who's the person selling it. Because some of that needs to start during the due diligence. Obviously, your key employees, right? To make sure you're retaining certain ones. Usually, there's going to be certain incentives, and you're going to have to identify those probably before you ever even start thinking about selling.
Yep.
So you want to do those. Our owner, in my opinion, let the employees know too early.
That's a good point.
Which can create a lot of issues, because since that one didn't go through, then your people, because then I was worried, like, are we going to lose certain people? Because it creates anxiety, and people, they want to have the choice of their own destiny. And they're kind of like, so I had a lot of times, like, kind of walk people back, like, hey, and give a lot of information to let people know, like, this is still going, or right now we're working on these, because people would be like, hey, what's going on? What's going on? And it's like, so even when you tell, and who you tell when you're kind of looking to sell, matters. Like I said, I think you want to be transparent, but you also need to wait to a certain point, because if you go too early, then, and if it falls through, that can create a lot of issues down the road.
Yeah.
And then once we were acquired, a lot of it is just trying to let people understand, like, hey, there are going to be rough periods. Like, that's kind of expected. We're all in this together. That's a big thing.
Nice. Yeah.
That it's, hey, it's not you. Like, the difference between, like, because we had some employees that thought about, like, I had one employee that was about to take another job, and I was able to kind of talk him out and be like, hey, you're kind of doing the same thing. At least here we're going together.
Yeah.
There you're going on your own. You never know how it's going to be on
kind of see
side.
This through kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, at least we're all together and we have your back. We know your value. When you're going somewhere else, like, everyone promises, it makes it sound so great, but once you get there, who knows? So
What about you, Karl?
So I was actually surprised. So we were going through the due diligence. We didn't say a word to anybody, because it could have fell apart. And, you know, exactly what Byron said is that, you know, if you tell people too early, then it could backfire on you. If you tell them late, it's okay. I mean, because if they're partners, though, they need to be understanding. I was super surprised how many of my employees were actually excited about this opportunity.
Really?
I thought I was going to lose like 50% of my employees, because, you know, there was an opportunity for them to grow within my company, but now they're seeing they can actually grow within a little bit bigger company. But what my problem was, and when I say mine, RPA, Rittok Powell, is we're really an Arizona firm. And when things were tight in Arizona, we were tight, you know. Now, if things are tight in Arizona, my folks can work, you know, we can share work everywhere, you know, across the nation. And a lot of my employees really liked that. And because it gave them a sense of security. Like they weren't going to possibly lose their job if we didn't win a couple big projects. Right. So, the other thing is that you definitely, the keepers, you know, the ones that have been with you, the ones that are actually really loyal. Our company was really good about saying, hey, we're going to give you this payout, but we really, really want you to identify who your top people are. And we expect you to give some of your money to them.
Interesting.
And we tell that to other firms that we acquire. And it's been very successful. Out of the 30 firms we've purchased, only 2 of the owners have gone. One retired and the other one none of us liked. So we kind of pushed them out in the middle of the ocean. No, I'm just kidding. But and none of us have to be there.
Right.
And that's the way we feel with our employees. And our employees see that. They're like, oh, wait, Karl doesn't have to be here. He could be in his garage playing with his cars or whatever. But they see me being there because I want to be there. And it makes them want to be there too. So.
Yeah. Well, I think in that case, like you and the rest of the leadership team at RPA, you guys had to paint the picture correctly. And you had to like stand behind it as a cohesive unit so that the employees all bought in, right? Because if there was any, crack in the armor or whatever at the highest level, then people are going to start questioning everything,
Well, and the other thing is it's like any story. It starts out as a blue car that went by in the morning to it was a red truck that raced by in the afternoon, So, and what is there? There's always 3 sides to a story, one, the other, and then the truth. As long as you're clear with your employees, this is what's going on and just precise, and the clarity is where it needs to be, for it to be successful.
What do you got to say about that, Duffy?
Come on, quarterback.
Well,
throw me a pass.
I can relate from our experience bringing over the 2 survey companies that we integrated. The leadership was very important, and I think being on the kind of post-acquisition side of it, got kind of pretty much an excited team, that was ready to integrate and go to work. And I think one of the things that you'd mentioned too is the layers of PLSs and experience that was not there for them. Now all of a sudden they had was reassuring and securing. They could get QC or work share from other places, and that's something that they didn't have before. So there was a blanket of security with that. So.
Yeah, and are there any keys to that? Because what you just said, Duffy, like kind of hits home. Like having a team that's ready and excited in that transition, like what do you think the keys are for that? I mean, like you said, it's obviously clarity and being upfront with them and maybe not being too early, but definitely not too late.
Well, I think Ken and Karl both pointed out too, it's part of selling that. Just like if you're hiring someone, you always tell the story of your company. It's letting your employees know here are the upsides. Like we had the same thing. We, in a smaller firm, and the way our older engineers worked is they would do a lot of the old school red line. So like our drafters were literally just copying those, and they're really using AutoCAD, not Civil 3D. So they were excited. So we were able to tell them like, hey, you will have these opportunities now to learn and try new things. Or to like some of our younger engineers, hey, you will have the opportunity to work on different types of projects now.
Yeah.
So kind of pointing out some of the sales job is saying, hey, here's stuff's going to change, but then here's some of the positives that will be forward.
And what you said there is probably accurate. Like you do have to sell it to your company. Like that's part of your job, right?
Yeah. That's being a good leader, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you're not lying to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
I'm telling you,
good point.
That's what will hurt in the end.
Yeah. That'll come back to bite you. What would you say are, like, I don't know, some of the top 3 risks that come to mind if you're considering doing something like this, so you can maybe proactively address before you take that step?
A lot of that depends on what kind of deal you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing like an internal deal, usually people aren't going to be able to pay for it all up front.
Yep.
So you're going to have a lot of risk because you're probably going to have to carry a loan type thing. So that's going to have a lot different risk than and same with like if it's an asset deal or a stock purchase deal, those have a lot different types of risk involved with them and tax consequences too. So it kind of depends on what kind of deal you have and even what's the structure of the deal. Cause a lot of them might have performance basis that you have to hit basically.
Yeah. Some metrics there.
Yeah. Metrics.
Yeah, for sure. Well, capital gains, right? I mean, that's a lot to manage, right?
Well, and depending on if it's an asset deal or capital or a stock deal, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, because some companies will want to go and buy, like I did, because I purchased 6 firms, before I sold.
Yeah.
And some of them was like, hey, I'll give you a third down, a third stock, and I'll pay you the other third in 3 years. That's how some people do it. But when you do, by the way, I mirror everything you said on that stuff. That was the risk you said. It was exactly what I would have thought too. There are some risks, definitely some risks, but there's also some benefits. Yeah. People don't make it by not being risky.
Yeah.
If you don't try, you won't know if you'll ever be successful. So, people will always ask me, like, I can't believe the risks you've taken. I'm like, you know what? I've failed. I've not been perfect, but the few that have worked, in the end, the median was way better.
Right.
So, but also with an internal sell, with what Byrom was saying, I can't say that quick. That's for sure. Is that I've seen people where they'll do an internal sell, and then the people that are running it don't run it right.
Yeah.
And the person that was relying on that money didn't have any money. Let me explain something. Nobody will ever run your company the way you run your company. Period. I don't care if it's your son, your daughter, your best friend, your whatever. Nobody will ever run your firm the way you ran your firm. And that's something you gotta get over. So an internal sell to me is way too risky.
Yeah.
Way too risky. Sorry for you people that want to try to buy your person's firm, but it's too risky.
Yeah. Well, and like, again, in your case, you were majority owner of RPA. There was a lot of letting go, right? Letting go of control and letting go of the things that you've done a certain way for X amount of years. It's got to be tough.
Yes, it was. Sometimes it still is.
Sure.
But one of the things that I got to let go was actually my freedom. I got to create a freedom because when I owned the company for 20 plus years, I never could go on a vacation. Really. I always had to be within Wi-Fi distance because I was always worried.
Right.
Yep.
But letting go, like I went on a European trip and sailed the Greek islands and stuff with family. And it was the first time I've done that in so long that it helped teach me to start letting things go. I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie, but I'm getting better at letting go because I got to trust the system. I just got to trust it. So
yeah, it's like a emotional paradigm shift,
What is
I'm going to add something on that, which is important for owners that are looking to sell. If you are thinking about internal, something you need to think about, the people that you're thinking to sell, are they going to be able to come up with some type of equity enough that makes sense? Because you need to make sure you have enough equity put down that they have something to lose.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about that. They're thinking like, hey, but does that person have a house they can borrow from equity loan on? Or like they have to have some way to get that money, and a lot of them don't. And owners don't always think about that, hey, how are they going to get their down payment, basically? So that's something you need to start thinking about.
Yeah. Good point. There's a lot to digest there. Duffy, you got something to add?
When I think about it, I think the risk is in the people, because like anything with business, they need to perform, and it comes down to the people still need to perform to make that return on investment from that. And so I think that's got to be one of the biggest risks there are, is will the people continue to perform? I don't know how do you cushion that or anything, but I just think that's got to be an important factor. Right.
Well, like you said, you're doing an internal sale, and you're not only doing that transaction, but you're also transacting the responsibility of performing. Like Duffy's saying, like that's where you have to make sure, like, do you realize what I go through? And you're going to have to take that. And if you don't, it's not going to work. Right.
By the way, internal sales aren't bad.
Sure.
So don't get me wrong. I'm just saying the risk is more with the internal sell than the external sell.
Right. Sure.
So, I mean, if someone's already been putting away a ton of money and they're able to live comfortably and they want to do an internal sell to their employees,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. And that's awesome because they're trying to help somebody build something.
Right. But understand the risks that you have going into it versus other options that are out there with more backing and more, stability.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a little bit to it, which is kind of putting both these together. That's something on the seller side you need to think about before you're going to sell too, is if you plan to exit in a year or 2 or 3, do you have someone that can run your unit, especially if you're out of state? Because I know that became an issue.
Mm-hmm.
With one of the companies we discussed with, is our former owner wanted to leave. He only wanted to commit to like a year full time and then
Mm-hmm.
go to part time. Well, they didn't see like, well, who's going to run this off?
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that. So,
Yeah.
so that's something you always have to think of. Is there someone there? Because companies will want to know that. If they don't have someone that's going to, hey, step in, they're going to want to see, is there leadership that can run this when that person's stepping away? Because a lot of people that are selling, they want to be
Sure.
able to back off. So
Yeah. Something Duffy said made me think of this. A lot of companies, especially reputable ones, will say that their people are their biggest assets, right? That's the same. Does that hold true during an acquisition?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that
100%.
half the point of
Well-
acquisitions is, you can't grow organically in the market because they're not making surveyors and engineers anymore. So you just have to buy somebody that already has them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what you're buying, right? The assets aren't worth shit, according to you guys.
we're in
The
a,
trucks are dog shit, I don't want any of that. I'm buying those people. And
Yeah, but you can't put like a dollar sign on like you're worth $5. I'm worth 1,000.
I don't know. I think Karl would would say otherwise. I'm like, I think he has to actually put dollar signs on. Like,
our industry, we're a relationship based industry. So to be honest, it is mostly about the people, because
Sure.
the reason I get work from certain clients is because I've developed that relationship. So a lot of times it is your people and the relationships they built.
but you're not selling the idea of Hess or anything else. You're selling Joe in the corner that's going to crank out your drawings on time. Like, that's what you're selling.
Correct, but you're also selling because they know, hey, like if I'm a project manager and I've worked with this company for 10 years and they know, hey, we're reliable. They're like, we were talking about even trust, like you need to be honest with your employees. You've developed that trust. In our industry. A lot of times, like when you're getting your project managers, they have those relationships, and that's where you're getting that work from, is driven from the relationships.
One of the risks that I'm going to pick up off what you just said was, whenever we buy a firm or acquire a firm, the risk is that the owner will leave and then people will follow.
Yep.
So there was some federal law that passed about non-competes and stuff. Well, it came back, so at least it protects some people. But you're buying the firm because of the people. So when the people leave, that kind of hurts. And you're stuck with all this work that nobody can do because all your people left. That's a big risk. And those are things that we think about when we're even talking to a firm to acquire, not just our due diligence on that firm, and really, really, truly includes if there's a family, if it's that culture, like my quarterback Duffy says, it's huge because you want to maintain that. So the people are what make it.
So what are some of the things you do to mitigate that risk?
Usually kidnap their children.
Yeah.
I have a huge basement.
Right.
That reminds me, I got to return one of the children to one of the guys.
Right.
They get to a point where they're expensive, even with bread and water.
I know. Eventually it catches up to you.
I don't know what that is. Just maintaining, like, when my quarterback Duffy was talking about how like the ringing of the bell, I think a company that purchases a small company like that should actually look into doing that for the whole company.
Yeah.
Because nothing feels better than being a small company that goes to a bigger company and you see the bigger companies wanting to utilize some of your ideas.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I mean, what does it hurt DEA to start ringing a bell? You know what I'm saying?
That's true,
that type of
right?
stuff, or
That's
Ardurra.
Yeah, but let's be honest, Duffy, you did rip that door off the wall after year 2 of like, nope, sorry.
If I hear that bell, you're all, an angel.
One more time.
An angel got wings.
Yeah, we only get a bell for $1 million contracts at DEA.
But that's how you keep your people.
Yeah,
you know, we did a thing like Cereal Day, like we still do it.
Yeah,
and you know, we're starting to see our other sisters or whatever, they're like, oh, I like that idea. Let's do that. Or cool. We do $25 gift cards for Thanksgiving, because we used to give everybody a turkey. But then when we get to 85 people, you
that's
don't have
a lot
85
of turkeys.
So we say, oh, let's just get a gift card. And now we're starting to see it being done more. You know, little things like that just kind of make you proud of what you created in your culture. And I think the larger firms need to see that, and they need to adopt that. Not push theirs, but to adopt.
You got any examples like that, Duffy?
I was trying to think, because I know there's a handful that we've adopted that actually have integrated. So we probably got just as many positives and negatives integrating. I can't think of one specifically, but I know that there are things that integrated. Now they just become second nature. I mean, after 7-8 years, they're just part of our everyday, you know?
Right. Yeah. So. We are kind of running long, but I do want to ask something that's not on our list that I know it's that's near to your heart, Kent. Is can we talk a little bit about safety culture, and have you experienced? How do you integrate a safety focused company with someone that may not be as focused? And have you had any challenges there? And Byron, you perked up, so I'll let you go first.
Well, ours has been the opposite way. Being a small company, we probably didn't focus on safety enough, which makes us adjust. Like, our guys aren't used to, now they have weekly safety meetings that you have to kind of expect, hey, there's going to be some non-charge time because they have to. Right. It's required that you're this weekly meeting and stuff. Plus, like, I assume you guys have the same thing with larger companies. We have to take like certain safety online classes and go through that. It's been pretty easy. It's just obviously now it's like, okay, we actually have to make sure we're allocating time toward where we didn't.
So.
Ditto. Absolutely the same thing. So just we were able to expand our horizons on safety. And I'm just going to say, watching some of the stuff that we have to, learn, I'm like, damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I wish I'd have known that 20 years ago. Like, how come this video is coming out now? Like, this is crazy cool. They serve cheese on cheeseburgers? Yeah. What?
I'm not supposed to text while I'm driving? No.
Oh man, it's good stuff. What else? Is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you guys want to make sure we get out there?
Duffy, what do you got?
I can chime in on the safety part. From my perspective, I mean, DA's got a fairly high or low EMR rating. And so we're very safety conscious. And when you hire somebody in that's from a smaller company, they can no longer run in the railroad. It turns out that's frowned upon. Right. And then you find out it's happened. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
Right. And I did realize I had to actually say that in orientation of, no, we can't actually do that. I actually have to write that down.
You cannot ride in the back of the survey truck.
No,
you
cannot.
With the gate down.
Yeah, with the gate down. Yes.
I want to give one little piece of advice that I've been telling people, especially when it comes to this. Like, on the leadership side, if things are bothering you with the acquisition and the people you're working with now or for, keep it to yourself. Don't take it outside, and don't give it out. Don't air your dirty laundry and stuff. And the other thing is, if you're having a really bad day, keep it to yourself, because the employees that work for you, they don't need to see that. They need to see that you're happy, because if you're happy, they're happy. And I see with some of the firms that we've acquired, you'll have the old owner or principal and just being a cancer, and that's not helpful to the employees. So my only advice is if you're thinking about selling and it still doesn't go very well, don't air it. Just be happy.
Great advice for sure. Is there a difference between a merger and an acquisition? Are they one and the same? Are they two different things?
Well, it depends how you look at it.
Well, it did like what type of transaction, obviously, right?
Well, an acquisition, I would think, is Byrom saying, "Hey, here's $100. I'll take your company." A merger is Byrom going, here's $50 for now. We're gonna figure out how to put us together, and over time, you're gonna not only get that $50 back, but another 50 and maybe another 50, and we're gonna be a team. So that's what I think mergers and acquisition is. I'm not really good with English grammar. We talked about that earlier. I didn't take those classes in college.
What do you think, Duffy? Is there a difference, or how would you describe the two?
I have to go with what Sean said. It depends on the deal. When I look at it, usually when I think of acquiring, you're coming a part of the other company, part of their leadership, a part of their program. When you're merging, you're almost staying the same, right? And you've got some kind of deal worked out where you've got a profit share of some kind, or there's some kind of integration where you're both working together and they're separate, I guess. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, and that's early on in the acquisition stages, because like you were saying, for a while, maybe it's changing out, but it was like Hess Roundtree, a Bowman company.
Correct.
Right? And then eventually it will be Bowman at some point, I'm assuming.
That's correct. We're still in that stage. I think they're talking about, they haven't decided exactly. I think January. Like ours is a little different when it comes to that, because since we were in schools and our name probably in Arizona, we're probably the #1 firm for schools. That is a balancing act. You don't want to lose. You want to make sure that brand equity is transferred before you just totally get rid of the name.
Yeah, brand equity. I like that.
Just because I'm going through exactly that. I'm going through what we're calling a brand facelift, and you still have a website that's not Bowman, but I'm sure there's a transition plan. And is there a playbook for this trend that I can buy that says, okay, after 6 months, you're this website, and then you change your email after this time? And what's the playbook? Then is that some magic formula that no one knows?
No, it's going to depend on the company. And like I said, there's a lot of factors. Like for us, our name had a big presence in our industry. Some, if you're like hey, I do some commercial stuff and I can just I work with these architects, I let them know. It might be able to happen very quick. For ours, we get calls from clients that we haven't worked with in like 10 years because someone recommended.
Oh, they just say the name.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
So we've been doing a lot like sponsorships for golf tournaments and stuff, trying to get the Hess name and the Bowman name to go together so that brand equity does transfer.
What about you, Karl? How did the RPA name just disappear?
Well,
I mean, you didn't lose the shirt, I see, but a shirt's a shirt compared to.
You know how much money I paid for this?
Yeah, right. I know you got a closet full. You're not just going to throw it away.
Right. That was something that you talked about earlier about things you have to give up. That's
a good point.
That was very hard. So not only did Ardurra buy Rittok Powell, but we also bought Shepard Westnitzer and Woodson Engineering to really, they dominated the Northern Arizona. And I mean, they started those companies, and it was really tough for people in Northern Arizona to go by Ardurra versus SWI or Woodson. We were not being very successful with our proposals because we changed it to Ardurra. And then what we did, because we get debriefed and people go like, we don't even know who Ardurra is, or Ardurra. You're like, oh, I get you. So now, even though I'm not supposed to, I'll say, Ardurra, formerly known as Rittok Powell and Associates, or Shepard Westnitzer or Woodson,
right.
Because we're still a name in Arizona that people remember.
Yeah.
And then we started winning work again. It's like, oh, you guys are those people. Okay. Right. Because the name recognition, the branding is very huge still.
Yeah.
Especially in this area.
Yeah.
Because Arizona is not that big. We all know each other. Nevada's even worse, and New Mexico is even worse than Nevada. I mean, you're literally a handful of PLSs, PEs, inspectors. So, and they all know each other.
Yeah.
But the government agencies that are selecting people, they don't know that. They're not all of them know it. There's a big majority that don't. They're not hanging out with all of us and stuff like that. So
they're saying don't repaint the truck, just peel the sticker off.
Slightly.
Let it kind of be in the background and put the new sticker beside it. And you're like, oh, that's just the new truck, and you can still clearly see it's Woodson Engineering on there. It's just a new little Ardurra tag.
Or just wear your old shirt everywhere.
Or you just wear your old shirt everywhere. I love it.
That's awesome. All right. You got anything else, buddy?
No, I've talked enough.
All good?
Yeah.
This is the most you've talked in a long time.
I know. I try every once in a while.
Pressure off me. I appreciate
every once in a while I try to create some input and value to the show. Yeah. Other than just moving buttons over here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Duffy, for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Karl, as always, Byrom, you guys were awesome.
Real quick, what show was Karl on?
15.
Karl's on 15. What about Byrom?
101.
Wow, that was many years ago.
Oh, so Duffy's the virgin?
Yeah. Yep. Sacrificial.
Timer.
First timer.
Quarterback, right?
Duffy Haggard. It almost sounds like a musician's name too. Dude, you have the best name. Like, my name sucks compared to your name. It's like awesome.
That's why I took the job. As soon as I saw the name, I'm like, I got to work with this guy.
I know. I'm going to ask my wife to start calling me Duffy. Only at night, though.
Send her a link to the live stream. She can see what he looked like. Check out this guy.
Look at his name.
Right.
And then if my wife actually starts to chew on her finger a little bit and go, okay. I'll call you Duffy.
Hey, a win's a win, buddy. Take it.
Oh, man. Awesome show. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Absolutely.
Adding value and making friends. No doubt about that. If you want to be a guest on a future show, shoot us an email at info@thegeoholics.com. Falling in Reverse.
That's the band.
With Jelly Roll.
Yes.
All my life.
Thank you.
Available everywhere. Until next time, everyone. A couple takeaways I made note of. Don't be afraid to fail. If you're considering an M&A, be prepared, for God's sakes. Don't air your dirty laundry. Really good advice. And most importantly, as always, be safe and healthy.
Right on.
So good.
Have you seen the video?
Yeah.
My best to get it together.